Okay, thank you. Kalimera, I guess. Dimitris, do you still say Kalimera? It's already Kalispera time? Okay. So Kalispera, everybody, from both of us. You must be tired as well. You tired? You happy this is the last speech? Yeah. No, wait a sec. No. Okay, we'll do it again. Are you happy this is the last speech? No. Okay, that's more like it. Sometimes, you know, not being true is more rewarding than being honest. Where's the professor who spoke? There you go. You see? Sorry about it. But... Okay, today Gonzalo and I will present a few data, a few numbers, figures, coming from the Great Place to Work database. The database most of you here contributed to creating. Okay? Tonight you'll be rewarded. A lot of you will be recognized as a great workplace, one of the 125 in Europe. Mm-hmm. And the data you'll see in a minute comes from your surveys. This is important. I want to say it up front because we are not going to be talking about the European labor market. So don't expect to see European averages based on all companies. We are talking about the excellent European labor market from Great Place to Work. It's very different. We saw data from a lot of professors and also our CEOs earlier today. Somebody mentioned a third, I think Professor West, a third of English, I believe, employees, or less than a third, are engaged, they said. Even you mentioned very low figures in the UK in terms of people happiness, employee happiness. Now, as you know, your data is very different. A third of happy people trust index. What's your average trust index? Shout it loud in the, do you remember it? Let's see if you're prepared. Companies? Well done, that's good. Okay, so you've got a lot to learn today from this presentation because we'll show you the data. If I just, oh, you want to go? Okay, let me just leave, okay, you continue, Gonzalo.
Okay.
Let me sit down.
Well, first of all, welcome everybody and thank you for your time and thank you for your patience. This is the last presentation, so we will try to do it as exciting as possible. There are going to be lots of numbers, but I will try to make sense of them. So before I do that, same as last year, you know, this year we are recognizing 125 companies that operate in Europe as best workplaces. I mean, this is a pretty amazing result because for you to have an idea, there were over 2,900 companies that took part in this initiative, and from all those companies, we selected 125. How did we do that? Yes, we checked at employee opinions, and we also had a look at, you know, HR processes within each company. So the combination of those two things allowed us to really recognize these 125 companies, from which we have 25 multinational workplaces, okay? That there are some conditions that they need to fulfill to be recognized as a best workplace at a multinational level. So they need to be a best workplace in at least 3 countries. They need to have more than 1,000 employees. And finally, employees, I mean 40% of all their employees or at least 5,000 employees need to work outside the country where the headquarters are. I think that's pretty fair to qualify as a best multinational workplace. And we also have large companies that are those that have more than 500 employees, medium companies, 50 to 500, and small companies below 50 employees. Okay? So this gives us an idea, more or less, of those companies that we're going to award later on. But now, let's see how they are distributed within Europe. So let's have a look at the next slide. Oh, no, let's talk first about the historical. So what has happened in the last 15 years? So this here is a historical trend of those best workplaces, European best workplaces, that we have been recognizing them year after year. And you can see a very nice positive line going there. So basically, best workplaces have been getting better and better year after year, which is a pretty impressive result. So what those numbers, what do they mean? For example, we have there 83. 83 is our trust index. So that means that from all those 58 questions that we have in our surveys, 83% of employees have answered the survey in a very favorable way. Okay? And this, year after year, has been increasing. For example, in 2018, we have 89% of employees who have answered the survey in a very favorable way. But these 125 companies represent around 200,000 employees. So now imagine 200,000 employees answering the survey in an extremely positive way, 89%. So this is outstanding. And also something that is also interesting here is that you can see that despite all sorts of external environments like the financial crisis that we had in 2008, I mean, the results have been stayed very solid. So why is this? Because best workplaces, have very solid practices that really somehow shield them from external things that may affect the well-being of employees. And also, why is it that they have been getting better and better year after year? It's because the environment is becoming more competitive. And organizations are investing more in communications, in well-being, in leadership, training, leadership, and so on, so that they get better and better year after year. Okay, so that's something that is important to highlight. Now, how are all these 125 best workplaces distributed in Europe? We can see that at the top we have the UK, with 34 of those best workplaces, followed by Germany with 22 best workplaces. So this is more or less how best workplaces behave within Europe. This by no means is trying to demonstrate what is the behavior of the economy in each of those countries, because as we know, Germany is the biggest economy in Europe, right? And in theory, there should be more best workplaces in Germany, right? So you might be thinking, what's going on here? And I was discussing with my colleagues who are sitting there at the back from Great Place to Work UK, and we said, well, the thing is, we're talking here about the UK, but actually most of the best workplaces in the United Kingdom are based in London.
So you cheated, Gonzalo, in the UK?
Well, not me, but
okay.
It's like a bubble. We have a very strong financial sector there, so there is foreign investment flowing into London, a very strong microeconomy there, and also the fact that it's an English-speaking country also helps. All these companies coming into the capital. So those could be one of the factors that we have so many best workplaces in the UK at the moment. All right?
Yep.
But now, I wanted to show you how they differentiate, multinational workplaces versus what I call homegrown best workplaces. So let's see what happens if we take out all the multinationals from this graph here. Now we can see that Germany and the UK are not at the top, right? But we can see that Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, Scandinavian countries, are leading, actually. Yes, let's go for it. Yeah. No, well done, well done. And I actually like this result, and I will explain you why. I mean, they are very much leading the number of best workplaces, Scandinavian countries. And I like the result because this means that these HR practices are homegrown. They are developed in-house. Because sometimes when multinationals come from outside into the country, they bring their own practices, and of course they are best workplaces in their host countries. But here we can see that in Scandinavia, actually, they are doing a really good job in developing their own companies and their own culture and their own best practices that lead to best workplaces. But let me show you the next slide. But we can see that the opposite is happening in countries like Italy. Sorry about Andrea.
But wait, sorry, 15 multinationals. We have 15 multinationals.
Yeah, pardon?
We have 15 multinationals. I mean, are there Italians in the room?
Yeah.
Federico, I thought so. Yeah, exactly. 1, good. 2 with me.
For example, in Italy, we have, 15 best workplaces, but those are multinationals that come from abroad, right? So they are bringing best practices into Italy. And the same thing happens with Spain, for example, that we can see that there are 12 best workplaces, of which 11 are companies that come from abroad. And we can say that the same thing happens with Portugal, that there are 7 best workplaces, but there are multinational organizations. So what I mean here is, and I think this is part of our job in Great Place to Work, is that we want to share the experiences of all these best workplaces, especially those that come to operate in European countries, and take those best practices and adapt them for the local markets, so that local companies can also become best workplaces. And that's the job we would really want to do. But anyway, Andrea is going to explain us a little bit more this difference between Scandinavia and Southern Europe. So some interesting points there. So Andrea, I
want to swap?
Oh, here.
You want it here?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There you are, all yours.
Thank you. Okay, we thought what Gonzalo just said, the Scandinavian countries are better at local level, at least they seem to be. Mediterranean, Southern European countries, Poland, seem to struggle a bit more at local level, at least again in terms of how many companies they place on the list. So we thought, let's step out of the Great Place to Work garden. Sometimes we are a bit self-referential with our research, so we thought, let's check other indicators that have nothing to do with Great Place to Work. So we knocked on the United Nations door. Hello, United Nations. Could you provide some indicators that we could use in our speech? Yes, Andrea and Gonzalo. That's like a Greek god in the United Nations. Yes, Andrea and Gonzalo. We've got a couple of good indices you can use. One is called the Happiness Index. The other one is called the Human Development Index. The letter sounds better. It's long as well. So we got them. We thought, okay, let's download them off the internet and use them. And let's try to see whether they say the same story that Gonzalo just told us. Let's check the first one. This is last year, 2017. That's the latest you can get. That's the Human Development Index. It comes directly from the United Nations Development Program. It's got nothing to do with the labor markets, strictly speaking. Of course, it does include per capita income, which is probably the closest thing, but then it's also education and life expectancy, in health. Okay? So these 3 main variables are taken into consideration. There are no surveys here. This is hard data coming from national surveys, national statistics. As you can see, okay, concentrate on the bottom 6 countries here. Turkey, Portugal, Poland, Greece, Italy, and Spain, plus even Austria, almost southern as well. Again, we're seeing that the more south you move, the lower these indicators move. A bit like Gonzalo was saying when he was talking about local companies. Scandinavian countries, again, seem to perform better. Norway, Norwegians here? Oh, you were cheering before. Okay, yeah. Good life, huh? Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then it's a little more mixed. Differences are not massive. That's a bit of a cheeky consulting scale where we use very big scales, so differences look massive. In fact, they're not that massive. But the story is quite clear. So let's have a look at the second indicator, the second index. That doesn't come directly from the United Nations. It's kind of authorized by, that's Finland, I suppose. Good, welcome Finland. I feel like a Eurovision Song Contest now. And Finland wins the happiness index. Congratulations, Finland. Finland, but Norway, good second spots. Again, focus on the bottom 6 once again. Greece, Portugal, Turkey, Italy, Poland, Spain. You remember the ones I showed you before? Same ones, 100% overlap, different order, same 6 countries. Happiness index is a bit more comprehensive than the previous one. It measures similar things, real GDP, social support. It's got things that I don't know how they measure, to be very honest. Generosity. Where's the philosopher? When you need a philosopher, they've gone. Okay. Generosity, perception of corruption. Putting all together, we get a very similar picture.
Very similar picture to what I presented at the beginning as well, right? With
yeah.
the best workplaces and those best workplaces that are dominated by multinationals and those ones that are, especially in Scandinavia, that is homegrown talent and HR practices. So you're already understanding where we're going here. All right?
Let's go. So peripatetic.
Yeah, let's
very
go for
pathetic
it.
presentation. Let's walk like Aristotle would do.
Let's go for it.
Very pathetic.
Yeah.
So, peripatetic presentation. This was not planned, but it looks good, I think.
Let's go.
We are now showing you the trust index in all these countries. Let's see if it says the same story. Here we go. So this is, again, Great Place to Work data, your data. One thing, this is not a subset of the 125 companies we'll be recognizing tonight. This comes from, it's all national data. It's all national companies that won the Great Place to Work award in every country. Okay, so it's a bigger base. Denmark, so I mean, there you go. Oh, you're all sitting together, you Scandinavians. It's Norway, Finland, Denmark. Okay, that's nice.
You know something, I'm going to move to Scandinavia now, I think, huh?
Yeah.
After this, you know, I'm already buying my tickets there, one-way ticket.
When we were 18, we all wanted to.
Yes.
Something happened. So Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Greece. So all Scandinavian countries seem to be doing soup. Why are you laughing?
You're laughing.
Gonzalo, our story doesn't work.
Yes.
Clearly, there's a little problem here.
Yeah.
Unluckily, we solved it by talking to our good friend, Dimitris here, who very kindly explained to me, couldn't figure it out. I mean, like, I kind of could, yeah? My explanation wasn't, okay, thank you. What's happening? You remember what Gonzalo, how do I go back now? What Gonzalo was saying at the beginning, when we were seeing the trust index in Europe growing despite financial crisis. Now, Greece is going through, started a few years ago, it's still going through a recession. So from an economic point of view, it's clearly not a healthy economy at the moment. Remember again what I said on the very first slide. We are talking about great workplaces. We're not talking about country averages. We're talking about great workplaces. So great workplaces in Greece are a very privileged sample of people. Even more so because around them, they see desperation. I'm a bit exaggerating, but it's kind of Greek drama, like desperation around them. That was more effective. And that's why people express even higher opinion. Because around them, the situation is bad. Do you agree, Gonzalo?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they are in these best workplaces and they feel privileged to be part of these teams. And of course, they are very positive in their replies and how they answer the survey.
Yep.
At the same level of the Scandinavians.
Yeah, amazing. Huh? So we've created a Greek Viking kind of character.
Yeah.
Now, we've understood that if you want to be happy, you either have to be Scandinavia or live in Greece today, in the workplace at least.
In a best workplace.
Best workplace, yeah. So we thought, let's take now the full data sets of European great workplaces, again, the 125, and work out, we asked statisticians to do this, what are the drivers that make people believe they are working for a great workplace? Okay? So that's the question we asked the data set with statistical tools. And this is what we got. 4 main buckets, 4 main clusters. And this is amazing. I really like this because it's super consistent with most of, if not all, the presentations we've seen today thus far. Hygiene factor. Workplace must be physically safe. I don't remember who, but somebody said it today. Can I have any witnesses confirming this, please? Yes, 1 guy nodding, 2. Good, thank you. Physical safety. Hygiene factor, though. It's got to be there. If it's not there, disaster. It's there in all your companies. Meritocracy reward. These are in growing order of importance, yeah? So the second one is meritocracy and rewards. Promotions is very interesting, especially. If people perceive to be in a fair workplace, if I do well, I'm going to make it. If I don't do well, I'm not going to make it. And my neighbor here, Gonzalo, if he does well, he's going to make it. And I'm not going to be happy about it because I want to make it. But still, I'm going to accept it because it's a fair workplace. Promotions go to people who deserve them. And also special and unique benefits. So the kind of reward area. There are other statements in the reward area, but weaker. Camaraderie. How people get on with each other. How well they get on with each other. That's very important too. How well we welcome people in the workplace. Again, this is something we've heard throughout the day more and more. People have to be able to have fun at work. Yeah? Caring about each other. Like the Scandinavians do at the table, for example. We clearly do. And a family of team feeling. So all this kind of warmth that you have to create in the workplace, that stuff makes people believe they work in a great workplace. They look forward to going to work. Top cluster, and Professor West is not here, but he spoke a lot, I don't think. He's gone, right? Yeah. He spoke a lot about leadership and the importance of leadership. And look at this. Managers have to be consistent. Managers have to keep people informed. So top-down communication, but communication in general must be looked after and careful. Managers trust people to do a good job, and they must be good at running the business. So if I see good people above me who know their stuff, who tell me something, and then they walk the talk, they live up to expectations of people that they set themselves, and who trust people, empowerment, these people will believe, they will work in a happy workplace, and they will believe it. They will say they do work in a happy workplace.
You remember that curve we saw that best workplaces kept up improving and improving and improving? It's because they focus on these specific drivers, and they invest money on these specific drivers because they see the importance of having a good employee experience in the organizations, because they know that a good employee experience, employee engagement, well-being really have there is a very strong correlation with performance and productivity.
Yeah.
So that's also one of the reasons of these big investments in these areas among best workplaces. Mm-hmm.
Now, Gonzalo, if you want to help me, I think we should leave these guys with a little pill of wisdom.
All right, let's have a look.
And
this one is too heavy, I think, you know?
No.
Yeah, careful. Oh.
Slowly?
Yeah, I think I can handle it.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. So we put this here like that. Careful. Yeah.
Okay. Now we are like in a Lyceum by Aristotle.
Yes.
And we can dispense wisdom. And the wisdom we want to leave you with is the following. If you have employees, manage them according to these principles. If you have children, send them to Scandinavia. Thank you very much.